My wife loves the American actor Stanley Tucci. It's her celebrity crush. And a couple of years ago, I took her to see him. He was doing a sort of like a theatre interview up in London about his new book on Italian food. I think it's the combination of the fact that although he's American, he's got that Italian heritage in him. And of course, it's all wrapped up in a small, stylish package. So given that, it should mean that she would also like this, because this is also a small bit of American wrapped up in a small, stylish Italian package. And in this week's road test review, I plan to explain why. Welcome to this week's road test review. Welcome to the new Fiat 600e. And of course, buongiorno to AutoEV. Now, before we get started on this week's road test review of Fiat's new 600e, it is of course that time where I would ask you to make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, make sure you've pressed the little bell button down below, because then that way you'll get a notification of when our next video has gone live and it's uploaded. Once you've watched it, if you do enjoy it, then make sure you give it a thumbs up, and don't forget, leave me your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let me know what you think about the cars we review, such as Fiat's new 600e, and of course on the AutoEV channel as a whole. Okay, let me just explain the American bit there, because I'm doing Fiat a big disservice with that, but it was just to kind of suit the rhetoric of that kind of opening line, if you like. This is the 600e from Fiat, and it sits on a platform, the CMP2 platform, that's also shared with the Jeep Avenger, hence the American side of things. They're built in the same factory, in Tychy, I think it's called, in Poland. But whereas the Jeep's sort of geared to be very Jeep-like, and it's sort of like more kind of rugged outdoorsiness, the Fiat is very much geared for the Dolce Vita, that Italian lifestyle. You know, the sort of like the inner city, the urban, stylish kind of sort of like owners that dash around the Italian Riviera, or sort of like Rome or Turin or whatever. But whereas the 500 is just maybe a little bit too small, they need the bigger 600 because they might have a small family or so. So that's exactly what it is. But how different can they make it to the Jeep Avenger, which is a very good car, and we do like it? Time to find out in this week's road test. But before we move on, let's take a look at the main points about the new Fiat 600e. Well, the 600e is the first Fiat to sit on a new shared platform from within Stellantis, the large multinational house of brands that Fiat is now part of. And it also, like I said, underpins the Jeep Avenger. It's a compact crossover B-segment style car that sits above the 500e city car, and it replaces the 500X in the company's lineup. It has a single front-mounted motor delivering a power output of 156 brake horsepower. It has a usable battery capacity of 51 kilowatt hours, allowing for a WLTP range of up to 254 miles. And initially there will be two trim levels in the UK, with prices starting from £33,000 and going up to £37,000. Now, platform sharing isn't new, nor is it new from within, dare I suggest, the Stellantis group. But Fiat have a very rich heritage when it comes to this style of car, this B-segment car. So how different, as I say, can they make it feel to the Jeep Avenger? Does it have its own La Dolce Vita to entice you as a buyer? Well, of course, the only way that we can find that out is by putting it through the road test review that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. And that is the AutoEV one. Okay, as always, we're going to start with styling. And styling is going to be important for this car because, let's be honest, it's Italian, and Italy is the style capital of the world as far as I'm concerned. So being stylish, is this car going to be this car's first port of call? Is it? Is it just like an overinflated 500, or dare I suggest an Avenger in slightly different clothes? No, they've given the car its own identity, and I think that is massively important. Obviously it's recognisable as part of the same family as the 500, but then that's exactly what it was like when they did the 600 all those years ago. Now, believe it or not, the 600 was actually the first car that Fiat launched, in terms of it came out before the original 500. The 500 was a sort of downsized 600. So they've gone the sort of the other way with this. This is sort of like an upsized 500. But as I say, it does have its own identity. Now, we're going to talk about colours first, because this is a big thing that Fiat have talked about. They're banishing grey from their colour chart. Back in 2023, when they launched the sort of like the 600e to the world, they said no more grey cars, that's it, we're only going to do nice big bold vibrant colours, despite the fact that they have a colour in their palette called sand, which is to all intents and purposes grey. Never mind. It's to do with sort of like the temperature of Italy in some respects. So they do like a sky blue, you know, a sea green. I don't know what this orange is meant to be, but basically it's orange, and I really, really like it, which is why I've chosen this one here. Looks quite classy in the sort of like the green, the sea green though. I do like that. Right, styling, yes, right. Headlights, very, very similar to the 500, but different. You'll notice the little kind of flick at the back here with the little 600 nomenclature here, and they're slightly bigger, and they're slightly more kind of swooping into the side there. I think this reminds me of, you know, the women that apply the makeup and that just goes along that. Remember what Amy Winehouse used to do? You had that little bit of eye makeup that goes in there. A lot of Italian women do that. That's what that reminds me of, and I think that's a really stylish little addition. I like that, especially a little badge in it. These lower lights here, rather than being complete like they are on the 500, these are split as well. Now, of course, you've got your cooling down at the bottom, plus your kind of sensor here for your radar guided cruise control, and more cooling in there. But look at this here. Look at this line. It's like it's smiling. Now, when someone smiles at you, you smile back. I'm really starting to think this is going to be a fun car. We're off to a good start. Of course, you've got your number plate kind of inset there, and the 600 badge across the front like you do on the 500. There's no Fiat badge on the car at the front, it's just this 600 badge across there. But I like it. It does make me smile. Now, when you move around the side, there's a little bit of kind of that kind of SUV / crossover pretense, if you like, with a kind of black wheel arch, sort of like extensions, and the kind of slightly raised ride height. But there's not a kind of ruggedness to the car, as I say, like the Jeep has. It is very much, I think, a sort of like urban-centric style of car, just with a slightly higher kind of driving position. It gives you that nice view out of it, which is easy for placing it around the city streets. And that's going to be important, because we'll talk about that when we drive it. Now, there's going to be two trim levels in the UK, which obviously we'll talk about in the pricing section, but basically there's two trims. The lead-in model, the red, gets 16-inch wheels and they're steel wheels, they're steelies, with hubcaps. Expect to see lots of those in sort of like Italian airport car hire departments with the wheel caps removed in the coming year, I would suggest. You move up to this model, which is the La Prima, and you get the 18-inch kind of aero kind of finished diamond turned alloy wheels, which I do like. The other difference you can tell on the La Prima to the red is you get the chrome flash kind of around the DLO, the daylight opening there. You get the kind of black plastic obviously down the bottom, again like a kind of follow on from those wheel arch extensions, but in the La Prima you've got the chrome trim through it with the embossed kind of half 600 logo there. I really like that touch. And you also get rear privacy glass on the La Prima, so that's how you sort of like can tell the two cars apart from the side. But again, it's new, it's individual. It's not just a big 500, although it is bigger than a 500 by almost half a metre, but it's still a very compact car. It sits on a footprint, as I say, remember, that's shared with something like a Vauxhall Corsa and Volkswagen Polo. Now, the rear of the car is quite interesting because, well, you might not be able to see it at that camera angle here, but the line that comes from the roof down the hatch, down to this sort of like lower bit here, this lower valance, almost is continuous, apart from the sort of like the bulge of sort of like the lights here and a small ridge here. That is very reminiscent of the original 600. That's exactly what it was like. There was kind of no bumper. It just kind of was a nice continuous line. And if you go and have a look at an original 600 in sort of like profile view, you'll see what I mean about that. So again, it's more of a nod to that car rather than the 500, and I do think that is important to distinguish it. As I say, you've got the kind of lights that do stick out a little bit. The kind of C-shaped lights, obviously with a little bit, but some nice little bits of kind of graphics in there as well, just to give it some distinction. Here at the rear, you do find the Fiat badge, which is obviously here. Up here, the kind of new stylised kind of Fiat, chromed Fiat badge. It's nice to see it just nice and tight there, rather than a kind of big emblazoned thing that some manufacturers do. You get the little E badge here obviously to let you know this is a 600e. Now, the car is also going to launch this year with a hybrid version, so you are going to be able to get it with an internal combustion engine that comes in hybrid form, not a plug-in hybrid, just a normal kind of hybrid. Now, this is important, and I do want to talk about this a little bit. Fiat are very much all about electrification. They really want to be seen as an electric car brand, but they also understand that a lot of people, a lot of buyers out there might be a little bit hesitant. There's a lot of confusing messages coming from media, coming from the government, coming from the news outlets, and data suggests coming from car forums and things, where we're just not sure where we're going to end up when it comes to electrification. So for those people who like this but aren't quite sure about going full electric yet, you are going to be able to buy an electrified one but in hybrid form. So that's why you get the E badge here, to let you know this is the full electric. The best bit about the back end, however, I think, is down here, where again you've got the 600 logo sort of like embossed into this black kind of plastic cladding here, but with the tricolore flag, the Italian flag through it. I love that. I think that's a really nice nod to the heritage, and I really do love what they're doing with this. It's a real stylish car. Body colour kind of rear diffuser area. Of course you get reversing sensors. La Prima model gets reversing camera as well, which is there. Of course you get the kind of roof spoiler up here, which is done in the kind of black, which is nice, doesn't need to be body colour. And then your inset high level brake light there, and of course your rear wiper. Okay. Right, what do we think? It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but then the 500 is not everyone's cup of tea. I love it. I think it's great. As I say, it's very different to the kind of ruggedness of the Jeep, which is a car I absolutely love. And if you're a regular viewer of AutoEV, you'll know I'm a Jeep owner, and I really like the Avenger. But Fiat has a very special place in my heart, because 30 years ago I started my car sales career with this brand, and I've owned quite a few Fiats. And I think they have really judged this car well in terms of its style and how they've managed to design it. It's going to be interesting to drive. But what do you think about the way car looks? Does this tempt you? Would you prefer this over something like a Vauxhall Mokka or a Peugeot E2008 or Hyundai Kona, which obviously it's going to compete with? Let me know in the comment section down below what you think. Okay, so why are you going to buy a 600 over, say, a 500? Well, it's because you need more space. You need to be more practical. And it is relatively practical. As I say, bear in mind, it is a B-segment crossover car, so it's super mini-sized in some respects. Even so, that is a boot space of 360 litres, which is all right. You get a standard 60-40 split rear seat, which when you fold down will take the total capacity up to just over 1,000 litres. There's not quite the same kind of completely flat load entry that you get in the Avenger. There is a tiny drop, but I'm talking about like a couple of inches there. It's not the end of the world. And you do have some cable storage underneath this kind of boot floor, which I suppose you could take out and just give you a slightly taller boot space if you really wanted to. But yeah, as I say, you can fit a cable in there, maybe two, or sort of umbrellas or whatever and such like as well. The boot itself is, say it's a relatively decent volume for the style of car that it is, and it is quite squared off with no sort of like massive big wheel arch intrusions at the back. So boot space is okay. It's good enough, I would suggest. Now, a bit like the Jeep, the compromise is rear seat space. Of course, let me just put this head restraint. These head restraints, you need to kind of put them up, otherwise they'll dig in between your shoulder blades. Right, okay, then look, this is my driving position there. As you know, I am 5'8", so there is leg room. I can certainly get my feet underneath the seat, which is great, because if you're a regular viewer, you know I have my seat always all the way down. But it is now starting to sort of like encroach onto my sort of like knee space, if you like. In terms of headroom, there's plenty of it. Again, I know I'm quite short, but headroom wise, there is more than enough space for me. So that is all right. It's just the legroom, I think, in terms of that. If you're a taller driver or a taller passenger, dare I suggest, then it's just starting to encroach a little bit there. It's a 4-seat car. Let's not kid anybody on, because obviously it's not a bespoke EV platform. It is shared with a combustion engine, so there is a transmission tunnel here. So really a middle passenger is superfluous. You're not going to get empty sat in there. So for 4 people, it's all right if the rear people, dare I suggest, are children. My daughter's 10. She would be okay in the back here. I don't think she would have any sort of like massive complaints if we were to do, a run from our home in Surrey down to Cornwall or whatever. She'd be all right. Where she would, however, have a bit of a complaint about is the lack of storage. Again, like the Jeep, there's no storage back here. There's no door bins. There's no centre armrest for in with cup holders and things like that for her. It's just a bit plain. All there is just the mat pockets on the backs of the front seats. And I do find that a little bit disappointing. I really expected a little bit more, certainly given the amount of space, storage space there is up at the front. There we go. There's also just the one USB-C charging port as well. So at least it does have one, but it is there. Isofix points, obviously on the two outer seats, but again, usual Stellantis. I don't really like these. They're behind these really stiff zips. I suppose once you've opened it and put the seat in, you might not be taking it back out, and it does keep the kind of the metal bars kind of covered. But even so, it's not my favourite solution there. So, what are we trying to say here? Okay, well, as I say, bear in mind where the car is positioned in the market space. It's a B segment car, and I keep going back to that. It is super mini sized. So in terms of things like Vauxhall Corsa, this is a segment Fiat have been absent from for a while. Effectively, if you think about it, this is replacing the Punto. You know, that they had out a little while ago, because they're not doing like a small 5-door hatchback anymore, like a Fiesta size, Polo size car. This is it. And it is geared more for the urban environment. So do we expect lots and lots of rear space? No, because if you need lots and lots of rear space, you'll probably buy a bigger car. What I am disappointed about, however, is the lack of, did I suggest, storage and little bits and pieces back here. Because obviously what I think is people that have maybe owned a 500, who are maybe starting a family, and therefore we know the type of thing that children carry around with them, whether they're babies or whether they're sort of like, you know, toddlers, or whether they're kind of grown-up children like mine. They're going to have bottles, they're going to have books, they're going to have iPads, they're going to have toys, they're going to have blankets, whatever. There's nowhere to put any of that. So that's the downside, I think, with the back, not so much the space. Okay, I think I mentioned it when we were outside, that I said probably in here you would maybe see more sort of like references to the Jeep Avenger than you'd certainly do on the outside, and it's dressed around about sort of like this area here, which is to be expected, because obviously there's going to be shared commonality of things like tech, switchgear, that type of thing, as you'd come to expect. But again, it has its own personality. Now, it's very much like the 500's dashboard, I think, because you get this circular binnacle here, where you get your driver's display here, really nice, crisp and large. So you get your sort of like your power meter, I suppose, if you like, which is charge, eco, or you're in power. Big digital speedo, range down at the bottom, state of charge, and your gear shift on the side there. Warning lights down the kind of side there, as you would expect. So again, really sort of like nice, clear, easy to understand, really very easy to use. All good from that purpose and that point of thing. You can go into up here, as well as using the touchscreen. The buttons on the steering wheel will allow you to adjust your, sort of like your media from the steering wheel rather than use the touchscreen, which is quite nice as well, actually. You can go into that, and obviously your usual bits and pieces such as your cruise control, Bluetooth, volume, that type of thing here. Steering wheel, again, like the 500 and the original cars, that nice 2-spoke design with the big central boss, the 600 logo, just the right sort of like nice. I maybe do being a tiny little bit thinner maybe for me, but I don't think many people are going to complain about that. And again, we'll talk about the steering when we're driving the car. Right, you move across here. You don't get the kind of painted dashes. So, well, you do, because it's obviously this kind of ivory coloured here. This is a La Prima model. So this has got this eco leather, which is good. Now, I did speak to the Fiat guys this morning, and I did say I appreciate that you know, Fiat do take sustainability very, very seriously. I think they need to shout about it a little bit more personally. They did with the 500, but it seems to be hidden away in the kind of press bit of this. This is eco leather. There's no real talk about the kind of recycled materials used, like they did the sequel material in the 500. I'd like to see them talk a bit more about what they've done with the sort of the interior of this in terms of recycling and sustainability, but that's for another day. Right. 10.25 inch infotainment system, so a lot of things controlled up here. Sorry, the volume's on. Let me turn that right down. So as you can see, you just go through your sort of like various bits and pieces to sort of like see what you want and where you get it. If you have La Prima model, it has inbuilt navigation, I think by TomTom. If you go for the lead in red, you still get this screen, but it doesn't have the embedded navigation. However, both cars still get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So would you need it? You just connect your Waze up or your Google Maps or your Apple Maps up. So that's good, it's wireless as well. La Prima also gets wireless charging for the mobile as well, which is underneath in here, which I'll show you in a second. There's a huge amount of safety kit on this car. For a small car, there's a massive amount of safety kit on it. The advanced driver assistance systems, the ADAS systems. So traffic speed, what am I talking about? Traffic sign recognition, lane keep assist, blind spot detection. And again, most of it is standard across both models. I think there's about 2 or 3 things that you get on the La Prima. And that's it. Because as I say, they're focusing much on the safety. And as I said before, with it being more of a kind of urban car, things like, sort of like lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, cameras, that type of thing is going to be really important to people. So it's good that it's got that. But yeah, a lot of safety kit is standard on the car. You've got the shortcut buttons like the Jeep has. So if you want to just go straight to home, there's a physical button there and it takes you straight to that function. They've also got heated seats in La Prima and an electric driver's seat with massage function. That's pretty big stuff. I mean, I know it's a top of the range model, but even so, at this size and sort of like, dare I suggest, market space of car, that's great it's got that in it. But yeah, it has it. Heated seats, 3-stage heated seats from the front and a massage on the driver's seat, plus electric adjustment. Great. Bluetooth, as you'd expect, and all the rest of it. Right, okay. So all of that's there in your kind of touch screen. Ooh. It's a good system. It's a tiny bit, you can just see it there. It just kind of, it's not massively quick, but I think that's the way it's designed to be. More of a kind of flow, if you like. But it certainly does all the job. And as I say, if you go for the top model, you get the embedded nav. And then as I say, there's all your kind of radio functions there and things there. Your heating and ventilation, whilst you do have a screen in here for it, where you can direct the airflow and do things like that. There's the physical buttons down below as well, which is excellent. So temperature, auto climate, max defrost, heated rear screen, the actual climate menu itself, and then bits and pieces there and your fan speed on this side, plus an actual physical volume knob for the radio. So kudos again, Stellantis. You've given us enough physical buttons for the, to quickly get access to the things that we need quick access to, like radio and HVAC controls. So brilliant. The vents are nicely kind of blended into the dashboard just underneath, like they are in the 500, and then you've got a little kind of storage tray in there just underneath those ventilation controls. Transmission buttons across the top, as you'd expect, park, reverse, neutral and drive, plus your B selector, which is obviously for your brake regen. And then you've got this like there was in the Jeep, and I do like the fact that it's obviously you've got the kind of two-tone colour, so you've got the ivory with the La Prima embossed on it here, and then underneath is the kind of the aqua of the seat piping. That's really smart. I like that. I can't remember what they said. I think something like 15 litres of storage up here, so it's not bad. So you get door bins, which are a little shallow. That little tray in there, which is good for maybe putting sunglasses in or a wallet, or maybe even the keys for the car, you can sort of like chuck them in there. Then you've got this deep kind of storage here, which is ideal for your little tub of sweets, but that's where your wireless charging pad is in there. Plus you've also got 12-volt socket and a USB port in there. The red model doesn't get the wireless charging pad, but it does get some really nice kind of seat trim. So you get the black kind of seats with the red logo embossed, the red 600 logo embossed in it, and the same here. This is black and underneath here it's red. Looks really funky, I think. I like that. Red's the charity, the AIDS Foundation charity that's set up by Bono of U2, to help with pandemics. There's a lot of brands associated with Apple used to be a big one as well, and Fiat is one, so that's why it's called Red, the lead-in model, just for your information. Storage, yeah, you've got 2 kind of cup holders which are adjustable back there, plus a centre armrest, which is good. It's quite deep. It's not particularly massive, but it's got big volume because it's deep, so that's all right. That'll take a pair of glasses. Your drive mode select buttons there and your electric parking brake. Right. Another nice thing, it's got this kind of frameless rear view mirror, which I also like too. Down at the front, down by my right knee, I've also got things for adjusting the headlights, alarm, front windscreen, and then obviously all the door and mirror controls as you'd expect to find them. Seating position is very good. Really nice driving position, nice comfortable seat. You sit dead ahead, nice and clear in front of you, you can see everything. Big side mirrors, door mirrors, which I can see, and my over-the-shoulder view. It's a little bit thick, that rear C-pillar, but it's okay. And of course, but as I say, as you go into reverse with the car, there is parking sensors, plus as well there is a rear camera, which you can see here, and I think it's a 180-degree view that it can give you. So that is excellent. Right, so interior of the car. What do we think? Right, well, I like it. I do like it. I think it feels special enough in this La Prima version. It does feel like it's got some nice materials on it. I think it's well laid out. I think it's well designed. I like the physical buttons of it. I like the clarity that you get with the instrument cluster and the ease of use of that driver infotainment system. There's a reasonable amount of storage. You know, as I say, considering there's nothing in the back, I think that's good that they've put some more stuff up the front. The materials are good. You just find the kind of scratchy plastics lower down the car, but that's no different to sort of like other cars that, you know, that Stellantis do. Vauxhall, Peugeot, that type of thing, Jeep. But again, it all feels well secured, well bolted together. It certainly doesn't feel fragile. My only complaint, as I said, is I would like to have seen a bit more of a sustainability message with the interior, like they did with the 500 when we went to the launch of that. They were absolutely harping on about sustainability and recyclable materials. They just haven't really done it with the 600, and that's my only disappointment here. But otherwise, in terms of the interior, its comfort, its equipment, its ease of use and its functionality, there's not a lot to dislike. Okay, mixed bag when it comes to usability, I feel. It uses the new 54 kilowatt hour battery that Stellantis have, which means it's a usable capacity of 51 kilowatt hours. And Fiat say that should give a WLTP range of up to 250-ish miles, depending whether you go for the smaller wheeled version or the bigger wheeled version. They do quote, believe it or not, over 300 miles WLTP on an urban cycle. So if you're just using it round about town, Fiat say it's efficient enough that you should get over 300 miles out of the car. Don't know about that. Certainly on overall combined usage, the EV database suggests you're probably looking maybe more around between 210, 220 miles, somewhere thereabouts. So all right for the size of battery that it is. And again, the type of environment it's probably going to be used in is what I'm saying. It's all right. Charging speed, that's the disappointing thing. It's only 100 kilowatts, but then because it's a slightly smaller battery, I suppose it doesn't need to top up that much on power. 100 kilowatt charging capability, Fiat quote a 20 to 80% charge in 24 minutes. So the usual benchmark of 10 to 80% I think is about 32 to 35 minutes. So on a par with what you'd expect. If you were charging up from your 7 kilowatt wall box however, you're probably looking at around about, I would suggest, 8 hours to go from flat to full. However, the car does come with a standard onboard 11 kilowatt charger. So if you've got access to that more powerful three-phase electricity and the more powerful wall boxes, you can drop that time to about 6 hours. And the other nice thing with it is it does come with a heat pump as standard. So as I say, the charging speeds are maybe a little bit disappointing, but in terms of its overall range for the type of use of the car and the fact that you get the heat pump as standard and Fiat's projected efficiency with the car, maybe it's not quite as bad as we must make it out to be. Now, whilst it would have been lovely to drive the new Fiat 600e through, I don't know, the lovely streets, historic streets of Turin or down the sun-kissed Amalfi Coast, I get a wet sort of like Friday in Gloucestershire in March. Ah well, never mind. How does the 600e drive? Do you know what? It drives really nicely. I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know if I was expecting it to be a sort of like a grown-up 500, because it's not. But nor is it sort of like just a, you know, when you drive the 500e, it doesn't feel like a Corsa Electric or a Peugeot E208. It doesn't feel like one of the kind of other Stellantis electric cars. The 600 sort of does. Now, let me just explain that a little bit, because there is elements that obviously are shared. It is a similar battery. It's the same motor that you get in things like the Mokka and the DS3 and the Peugeot E2008. And of course the Jeep Avenger. So of course you are going to, if you drive those cars, you are going to feel similarities. So there is that. The power is 156 brake horsepower. But let me quantify that a little bit, because so one thing Stellantis do that I don't know, it feels a little, they say 156 horsepower, it only does that when you're in sport mode. So if you're in normal, like I am at the moment, I think it's 109 brake horsepower it gives. Whereas if you go into eco, it's 89 brake horsepower. So it's only when you're in sport you get the full 156 horsepower, which is, you know, a little bit of an odd thing. 0 to 60 is 9 seconds. What do you want a car to do? If you want something faster, pay more money and get a fast one. If you want a faster one, there's going to be an Abarth version of this with 240 horsepower. Oh, I am looking forward to that, I have to say. End of 2024 that should be out. So that should be a corker. But I'm going back to what I said. There is an element of it that does feel like some of those other Stellantis cars. But I don't want you to think that it's exactly that and you'd, oh well, what's the difference? There is a difference, and there is an element of Fiatness to it. It's just not the sort of like the grown-up 500 that I thought it might have been. That's all I'm trying to say. What it is a really easy little car to drive. It's really easy to drive in the sense the steering is really light, and I don't mean light as in imprecise and you don't know what's happening. It's just manoeuvrable. I really like the steering. I've just come through a little village, a town, Chipping Camden, you know, and you're kind of going through the kind of town streets, and you know, you're making kind of sort of like, you know, quick turns and things like that. Gosh, it's fingertip light. I mean, look, that's my finger. I'm turning the car around. The turning circle of this is 10.5 metres. Best in class, seemingly. And I can believe it. It feels really manoeuvrable. So that's the first thing that's really struck me. The second thing that's really struck me is how nice the driving position is. As I said to you when we were doing the interior, you do sit kind of straight ahead. You know, there's nothing, you don't sit off to the side. There's no quirky sort of like Italianate driving position, you know, the old monkey driving position where you need sort of like, you know, long arms and short legs to drive any Italian car. It's not that. You know, it's a really nice dead ahead driving position. Everything is within easy reach. All your controls, all your stocks, everything like that, really easy to get on with. So it's easy to drive in that sense. The ride comfort is good. Now this is, as I said, the La Prima model, so this is on 18-inch alloys. The red gets 16-inch wheels, so I would think it's even better because obviously the tyre profile will be different, and I would think it will give us a very different sort of ride quality. But this isn't horrific at all. This is actually very nice. You can feel the road surface. There's no doubt about that. You can feel what's going on underneath the car, but not in an uncomfortable way. It's not as sort of like communicative and sporty feeling as something like a Mini Electric or even a Mini kind of Countryman or something like that, but it's not meant to be. I would think, as I say, the real sort of like the real USP with this car is going to be sort of like urban driving. You know, that bigger car in the kind of urban environment. You sit nice, you sit just high enough where you can see all the extremities around you. You know, it's very easy to place on the road if you're in a car park, you know, a multi-storey car park. You know, you're not going to be curbing wheels because you can see where the, you know, where the bonnet is, you can see behind you. All that's very, very good. And obviously you've got all those driver assistance systems I was talking about. I will talk about the driving modes, as I said, because as I say, obviously the power changes depending obviously which one you are. So if you're in, let me go back to Eco, that's where it just dulls everything down, and yeah, you put your foot to the floor and just nothing happens. I don't see any need for that at all. When you're in normal mode, which is what I've been driving it in, you put your foot down, it gathers pace rather than accelerates, let's just say. But it doesn't feel like it's not keeping up with the flow of traffic, you know, out on these kind of open roads. It's really quite nice. And then when you flick it into the last one, when you're in sport, when you're the deluge of 156 horsepower, ooh, yeah, it's all right. I mean, as I say, there's, you know, there's a truck and a car in front of me. I don't feel like I want to just eke out and just zip past like I would in, you know, a Tesla or a Polestar or whatever. But would you do it in this type of car if it had a petrol engine? I don't think you would. Dial it back to normal. So, easy steering, good visibility, well-placed controls, nice and easy to use. The relationship the driver has with the throttle and the brake is actually okay as well. The brake, you do come off and the brake sits a little bit higher, but they have sort of fixed that kind of Stellantis deadness at the top of the pedal, and this has got reasonable feel. There is one level of brake regen, so like you normally get in the cars. It used to be down here on a button, now it's the transmission buttons, PRND, and you just press the D button again, it goes to B, and that's when you lift off and you get a more powerful kind of braking on it. It's not one pedal driving, it just slows the car up a bit. It will bring it to a creep, it won't hold it on the brakes, it will just bring the car up to a creep, and that's about it. But again, I'm not I don't really need one pedal driving. I like to sort of like do the braking myself, but if you are a big fan of it, be aware this doesn't have it, but it's just enough retardation for kind of town use. As I say, the ride quality is good. There's a little bit more noise than I was maybe expecting from the car, and it is a combination of road and wind noise, but again, not uncomfortably so. I wouldn't think that a long journey in this car on, say, like a fast open A road or even a motorway is going to be tiring at all, like it might be in something like a 500. It does feel like a bigger car. It does feel like, you would be able to undertake. I'd happily drive this to Scotland. I wouldn't have a problem with driving this up, to see my mum up in Lockerbie. I think it'd actually be quite a nice little car to do that in. If there is a little fault with it in terms of the driving position, I'd say it's here. I just find myself, and as I say, I'm not tall, I'm only 5'8", my wife's taller, she's got really long legs. I would think she would find her leg, just the knee, just catching the edge of that centre console. But there's a footrest, it's fine there, so you've got somewhere to put your foot, but I just find as you're sitting back, my knees just, that bit of my knee, that bony part of my kneecap, is just on that side console there, and I would think that might just irritate after a little while. Otherwise, the driving position I can't fault. The seats are good, they're comfortable, as I say, they place you well, they've got just enough lateral support, you don't need any more than this. Obviously something like the Abarth is going to have things like sport seats and stuff. For this car, you don't need it. They are nicely padded, they're comfortable enough, and as I say, for roundabout town, they're going to be ideal. So the thing is with the car, so in summary, it's going to sound a little bit like almost a bit meh when I say it's a nice car, and it's not meant to be that. It's not meant to sound like that at all. When I say it's a nice car, that's meant as a real compliment. It feels like a car of this size should feel. As I say, it doesn't feel just like a bloated 500. There's a downside to that because it there's a little quirkiness to it. Like for instance, it doesn't have Sherpa mode, and things like that. There's things that I really love about the 500 this doesn't have. So from that point, it does feel a little bit more like the Avenger, and as I say, the DS3 and things like that, the Mocha. But don't think it's just one of those with a Fiat badge on it, because it isn't. It's really light and easy to manoeuvre. It's really, it feels like zipping round about the city or the town would be a delight in this car. And I think that's exactly what they've tried to do. I think they've gone for that kind of, that brio, if you like, in the city cars that they used to always be renowned for, but in a bigger package. And I think they've done it. I do. I like it. I can see the appeal with this car. If you've had a 500 and you now need the extra practicality, this is it. This is what it is. It's the 500 plus 100. It's a 600. It's a good car. I like it. Now I want to talk about pricing now, because this is a really important area, especially for Fiat. Fiat don't see themselves as a niche brand, they do see themselves as a mass market brand. And whilst the product that they've been offering maybe up till now maybe hasn't dictated that you've maybe seen it as such, you know, there's no sort of like D segment saloon, there's no sort of like C sector 5-door hatchback, they do sell in big numbers, and they are a popular brand obviously in their home market, and they were really popular in the UK. As I say, I started my sales career with Fiat back in 1992. And we had quite a lineup back then, you know, with everything from the original Panda to the Uno to the new Tipo, the Tempra, and then of course the Chroma at the top of the range. But they are very much a retail buyer's brand. They see themselves as, they haven't really had anything to offer the fleet market, which is an important market in the UK, because nearly half of the UK market is fleet. And one of those, the biggest fleet in the UK is Motability. So this is a car I think that's going to appeal maybe to some fleet users as well, you know, sort of like your lower rung kind of entry level into company car buyers. So the pricing of the car has to be really, really good. It has to really, really be tempting. Obviously, we know the benefit in kind advantages that come with running a battery electric vehicle, but even so, private buyers and some companies maybe still buy or you know, do a PCP or something like that. You know, the price has to be right. And I think it is. It's 32,995 is where it starts at for the red model. And as I say, remember, it comes with quite a lot of equipment on it as standard. Fiat don't offer any options on the car. So in other words, you choose the model and you choose the colour, and that's it. That's all you have to do. So 32,995 gets you into the 600e. You then move up to La Prima, which is this model, which is another £3,000. So that's 35,995 for this car. However, at the moment, Fiat are doing something quite clever. They are offering what they call the Fiat E-Grant. Now, they did this on the 500. They've done it on the Abarth. They're now doing it on the 600. They're giving you £3,000 incentive, because the government don't do this, like the electric car incentive anymore, the grant. So Fiat do it. They call it the E-Grant, the Fiat E-Grant, which brings the starting price of the red just under the £30,000 bracket. And the La Prima model obviously brings that down to the price of the red standard at £33,000. I think that's good value for money. I genuinely do. I think they've hit the market well with that. And if there's more models that come out, more trim levels or special editions and things where they can really tally that price round, given the level of equipment on it, I don't think that's too bad. I think this is reasonable value for money. My only downside with it is, in terms of its warranty, now you usually get an 8-year battery warranty on the car, which is taken for granted, but it is still just a 3-year warranty that you get in terms of a mechanical warranty on the vehicle. Might have been nice to see them maybe up that, maybe to 5 years, to compete with things like MG, Hyundai, and obviously Kia. Right, in terms of competition, well, of course, you're naturally going to look at the likes of the Jeep Avenger, because as I say, it sits on the same platform. And if you're looking at the Jeep Avenger, then of course you've still got the Stellantis brands, if you like, that use a similar platform. So Vauxhall Mokka, Peugeot E2008. And then, of course, I say there's other cars that you're going to consider in this sort of like market sector. Remember that Ford is coming out with an electrified Puma, which is going to be a very, very similar style of car to this. The Puma's their kind of new entry-level car, the B-segment SUV, as you'd expect. Of course, there's things like you can maybe move up a little bit in size. You've got likes of the Hyundai Kona, the Kia Niro as well. That's also a consideration. But Fiat are going more for the kind of style element of it. That's what they're trying to say. This is a stylish little car. And of course, if you're looking at style, then maybe you're going to be looking towards France, because obviously DS Automobiles, again part of the Stellantis group, do the DS3 Crossback. Well, they don't call it Crossback anymore, it's just DS3. Again, not massive on practicality, but very high on style. So that is another consideration as well. But given the price point of the car, you're also maybe going to be eking into those C-sector kind of cars as well. So things like the MG4, because we know that starts at, in terms of value, under £28,000 still. You know, £30,000 gets you the sort of like the bigger battery and the nicer equipment. BYD, They've also got the Dolphin, which is sort of like early 30s, slightly sort of like, you know, it's a C-sector hatchback, or a Funky Cat, which is now called the GWM Aura 3 or something like that. That car's in this bracket, again, you know, a bit more style maybe, less practicality, less kind of range, but high in equipment levels. That could be considered a rival. You might also be looking at things such as the BYD Atto 3 and maybe even the MG ZS, because again, in terms of the price point, they're not far off the price of this La Prima model, and they're a slightly bigger sort of like crossover SUV. So what I'm trying to say is there's certainly plenty of options for you out there in that 30 to sort of like £36,000 bracket that at first you might not consider as a main rival for the 600, but in many ways might be. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the new Fiat 600e. Well, we love its styling. It has a good level of standard equipment. The car feels right and engineered well for its main primary use, which is that of the urban environment. And we like its simple range and pricing structure. We don't like, well, it can feel a little bit underpowered when you get it out on the open road at times. We're a little bit disappointed at the lack of sustainability message from Fiat with this new car. The warranty package isn't as comprehensive as some rivals. And also whilst the boot is okay, the lack of practicality for rear seat space, given that it will probably be occupied by children, we feel is disappointing. Fiat knows its marketplace and its customers very, very well, and it knows exactly who this car is going to appeal to. If you've had a 500 or a Panda so far and you're charmed by its sort of like unique, sort of like Italian kind of brio-ness and its style, but now need something that little bit bigger, that little bit more practical, then as far as I'm concerned, the 600e is a no-brainer for you. No, it's not particularly dynamic, nor is it particularly fast, but it needs to be neither of those things, in fairness. What it needs to be is stylish, practical, easy to live with, and not break the bank. And in all of those points, the 600e does those very, very well. Others do it better, but it is hard not to be won over by the style of the new Fiat 600e. La Dolce Vita, indeed. Thank you once again for watching another episode of AutoEV. As always, please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, and once you've done that, make sure you've pressed the little bell button that's down below, because that way you'll get a notification of when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed this video, then please make sure that you do give it a thumbs up, and of course don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think of the new Fiat 600e? Is it a car that tempts you? Would you forgo a Peugeot E2008 or a DS3 E10 for something like this? Have you got a 500 at the moment and need something a bit bigger? Does this appeal to you? Of course, don't forget, let me know down below. Now remember, we're also across all social media platforms as well. So Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, we're there too. So make sure you do give us a follow there, because that does help the channel as well. And if you are in the marketplace for buying a new electric vehicle and you want to know all the little intricate details of it and all the pros and cons for it and what's good and what's not that's out there in the market space, then make sure that you're tuned into AutoEV's YouTube channel, because every time a new electric vehicle hits the UK market, we subject it to the full road test review, just like we've done with the Fiat 600e here. All that remains for me to say is thank you once again for watching. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. I shall see you again soon. Arrivederci.